Hello and welcome to Maths on the Move, the podcast from plus.maths.org. I'm Marianne Freiberger.
And I'm Rachel Thomas. We're here in our home of PLUS, the Centre for Mathematical Sciences in Cambridge, and we're continuing our series of podcasts about bringing maths to the stage and screen. And as we're in the CMS, we're revisiting our interview from back in 2012, when we were lucky enough to host a film screening of a film called The Travelling Salesman. Marianne, The Travelling Salesman is a movie about a mathematical problem named the Travelling Salesman problem. Can you tell us quickly what that is?
Yes, so imagine on a normal day, I've got various things to do. I need to go to the supermarket, I need to pick the kids up from school, I need to go to the pharmacy and the library. So the question is to find the route that visits each of these places exactly once, because there's no need to go twice, and to find the route that is the shortest distance. And the problem is called the travelling salesman problem because you can think of it in terms of a travelling salesperson having to visit a number of cities, and they want to do it in the most efficient way.
So I can see how you or I could figure out the best route for you for Monday to solve, give you the quickest route round the supermarket and the library and picking up the kids and the pharmacy. Because if I wanted to, I could just figure out each possible route through those 4 spots and then judge which one was the quickest or the shortest. But actually, as you add more and more stops in, if you're a travelling salesman who has to visit 5 cities or 10 cities or 100 cities, I can see how figuring out the quickest route would get hard really quickly.
Yeah, exactly, because then the number of routes you'd have to check to find the shortest absolutely explodes sort of very fast as the number of places you want to visit grows. And actually, we recently interviewed a mathematician, didn't we, who was figuring out shipping routes, and exactly that problem occurred. The more ports they had to go to, then it just became impossible, really difficult to find the shortest route. So that's why the travelling salesman is considered such a difficult problem, because nobody knows of an algorithm that efficiently finds you the shortest route, as you know, once the number of places you want to visit has gotten large.
And when we say no one knows of an efficient algorithm, what we mean is you measure efficiency of an algorithm or a recipe for telling you how to find the best route, how to solve this problem. You measure how efficient it is in terms of how long it will take or the number of steps it will take. And there's a sort of understanding that a relatively quick algorithm, a sort of feasible algorithm, would have the number of steps being roughly proportional to the size of the problem you're looking at. So it's called polynomial time, and it means that if you're looking for n cities, a route through n cities, it should take you roughly n steps or of the order of n squared steps or n cubed steps. And that's considered relatively tame in terms of the amount of time it takes to solve the problem. And the class of problems that take this sort of, to take polynomial time is called P, the class P.
Yes, exactly. All the problems that are in the P class are considered easy. And I mean, that is a bit weird because that includes problems where the number of steps an algorithm takes might be proportional to like the size of the problem to the power of 1,000,
which is to 1,000,
which is huge, which seems huge, but it's still it's not the same as exponential growth. So even though the time it takes the algorithm might grow very fast in that case with the problem, the size of the problem growing, it's still not exponential growth, and that's why it's considered efficient. So that's the P class.
Mm-hmm. And then there's this other class called, it's known as NP, and what that is, non-deterministic polynomial, which is a bit of a mouthful, but what does that mean, loosely speaking?
Okay, so that's a class of problems where we may not know an efficient algorithm in the P class to actually solve the problem, but where given a solution, we can check whether the solution is correct in polynomial time. So there's a version of the travelling salesman problem that we can use as an example here. If instead of asking for the shortest route, visiting all cities exactly once, you ask whether there is a route that visits all cities exactly once that is shorter than some distance d, then obviously if you give me a potential solution saying this route is shorter than distance d, then I can check it by adding up all the distances. And that's quite an easy thing to do. So even though for that version of the traveling salesman problem, we still don't know of an efficient algorithm to actually solve the problem, once we have a suggested solution, there is a polynomial time algorithm, so that's an efficient algorithm to check whether that solution is correct. And problems with that property there in this class called NP.
So we can't solve the travelling salesman problem on its own, but we can check a route is below some certain boundaries.
Yes, and there are loads of problems for which this is the case, that you don't know how to solve it from scratch efficiently, but once somebody gives you a solution, a potential solution, you can't check it.
So what other sorts of problems are those?
So for example, there's a very obvious one, which is the factoring of numbers. Okay, so if I give you a small number like 12, it's relatively easy for you to figure out what its factors are. There are 2, 3, and 4, and 6. Mm-hmm. But if I give you a larger number, such as 2,569, actually finding...
I cannot tell you what the factors of 2,569
we can't. We would have to Google it, so we can't even do that now. But that's really hard. And again, like as the number goes bigger, larger, the algorithm... so there are obviously algorithms that will find you the factors, but it's like with a traveling salesperson, that like the time the algorithms take just explodes as the number gets bigger.
But alternatively, if you gave me, I think these are the factors of 12 or the factors of 2,569, I could easily check if they do multiply together to 2,569. So easy to check, hard to solve.
Exactly, that's the whole thing. And now a big problem in mathematics that nobody knows the answer to yet is there is a chance that this P class, which are the easy to solve problems, and the NP class, which are hard to solve but easy to check and answer, they may actually be equal, which means, so basically maybe the NP problems aren't as hard as everybody thought, and there are efficient algorithms to crack them.
And there's even ways in which if you can solve one of the problems in the class, you could you get this avalanche and you'd be able to solve loads of problems in the class. That's why if someone could prove P equals NP, then lots of problems that are currently unsolvable could be solved easily, such as factoring numbers, which would then crack loads of cryptography that we use for, say, online shopping.
Yeah, because that's the thing, because that example of factoring numbers, the fact that these problems are so hard when the number is large, is used in cryptography a bit like a padlock. Like it's used to encode messages that are then hard to decode because it's so hard to factor numbers. But if somebody found an efficient way, if P equals NP and somebody has an efficient way of solving these problems, then all our cryptographic systems are out of the window, which is why this makes it a good topic for a movie.
So that's a good time to go to our interview with the wonderful Timothy Lanzone, who flew over for the UK premiere that we hosted here at the Centre for Mathematical Sciences of his film, Travelling Salesman. Timothy is the writer and director of the movie, and we started off asking him what made him make a film about a mathematical problem.
The short story is my brother's a computer scientist, mathematician, and introduced me to the concept of P versus NP. The longer story is when I wanted to make a movie, and I knew I had to limit it and confine it, and so I wanted to tell a dramatic story in one room, which was a big challenge. 12 Angry Men is one of my favorite films, and it was kind of like a early starting influence, saying, I don't have any money, I don't have a ton of time to shoot this. How do I tell a really interesting story that's going to keep people's attention, and most of it take place in one room, so I can actually make this happen? So that was kind of an initial thought, was what if these guys create something that is just groundbreaking, that just the world stops and changes from that point on. What I initially wrote was a script about if these guys factored the prime number and the implications of that, and a lot of the implications that we see in Travelling Salesman now were similar, at least in my non-mathematical mind. A lot of the implications and consequences in cryptography and public key encryption were the same. When I sent the script to my brother and said, hey, who's a computer scientist, what do you think of this? He said, this is great, but why don't we take a look at this idea of P versus NP? And that's when he kind of opened my eyes to the whole concept. And I said, wow, that's a really interesting fit. So I kind of found P versus NP. We kind of fell into each other. And then we from there, we kind of tweaked and restructured to kind of fit into that world. And then before we knew it, we had what we considered a pretty dramatic and interesting story taking place in one room that we were able to shoot and kind of able to get our heads around and get it done. So
I really liked the fact that, you know, there's mathematical detail in the movie. A character kind of demonstrates the problem using a pack of cards and a magic trick. And at another point in the movie, you have one of the mathematicians talking about sand and desert, and then suddenly this sort of metaphor comes to mind that helps him solve the problem. I mean, where did you get those sorts of insights? Did you talk to mathematicians about how they explain the problem, how they tackle research?
Yeah, a little bit. My brother talked to a lot of his friends in the field, and we kind of wanted to come up with a simple construct for kind of explaining a very complex problem. We wanted the movie to feel realistic for mathematicians, but we also wanted it to be accessible to the film community. You know, so the fine line is, you know, it's a very fine line that we had to walk. So the idea behind just kind of coming up with some simple constructs, I thought from the start was kind of essential for us to quickly and easily kind of explain the implications of the problem. Just showing something quick and in some cases visually showing it, and kind of putting in sliding into the script so it felt seamless as opposed to forced in there. Like, oh, we have to explain what this is, so let's cut to a little scene about it. We want to kind of make it feel, you know, seamless and part, you know, natural and part of the conversation that flows in the film. So, and to be honest, those were scenes that it took us a while to kind of get down, because we had initially written some more complicated and maybe I should say convoluted explanations or just kind of quick constructs for that, and it just wasn't working. So we fell into the card trick idea, and I forget the genesis of that, but we felt that it was just quick, it was easy, it was visual for non-mathematical audience members. They'll quickly grasp, you know, the concept behind it. Yeah, in a movie like this, we move quickly and we don't pay too many punches. You know, everything is hard hitting and moving fast, so that if someone is not involved and an audience member does not understand what's happening, which was a big concern of ours, you know, they'll be lost and just completely they'll withdraw from the film and not care about it at all. So we wanted to get that. We wanted to pay those things off early and make sure everybody really gets what the power of the solution is.
I think I was talking to a friend about it, saying, because, you know, I'd done a bit of reading and knew a little bit about the problem, I was thinking, I wonder if it would be a bit intimidating. But then I was talking to a friend, she said, well, you love watching medical dramas and there's a constant stream of things you don't understand in there. So, it'd be interesting to hear from people who maybe haven't got that background and see what they what they get out of it. Yeah,
we've had some feedback and it's always been positive, but a lot of times the feedback has been they just believe the actors and the story because they got nothing else to do, so they just kind of buy into it and they just go for the ride. So, which is, you know, in some ways it's good because it means they're believing the performances and they're just kind of into the story, which we were like, all right, well, if that's the way it is, we'll take that.
The other thing I really liked is mathematicians. It's rare to see a mathematician in a movie anyway, but if you do, they're almost always crazy. Or they're incredibly eccentric. So it was really nice to see these four characters who were normal and three-dimensional and kind of flawed as well.
Right.
And I was wondering, when you approached writing characters that were mathematicians, did you have something in your mind that you had to think differently, or were they just another character similar to any other character?
That's a good question. One of the things when I do a little screenwriting teaching, and one of the things that people always ask, like, how do you come up with your characters, or how do you write dialogue for your individual characters? And one thing I always say is that every character is a little bit you. So I always write characters from kind of my perspective, and knowing that, you know, kind of maybe a background story or kind of who they are a little bit. I kind of write how I would say what they're saying, you know, given the kind of certain parameters that I constructed for them. So and I knew my brother's a computer scientist, mathematician, so I knew a lot of his friends. So and they were all really funny, normal people. So it's funny, you're right. The stereotype is often that they're crazy eccentrics with crazy hair and shrieking eureka or something ridiculous. So and I wanted the film to just not feel cliched. Like I always try to, if I can, anything I write, try to avoid like the cliche territory. So these are just kind of four, they're not normal because of their intelligence, their high level intelligence, but they're four people who've just done this incredible thing, and they're normal in a sense that they have to kind of now figure out what to do with this, and it's this is beyond kind of their realm of what they're experts at. So, but yeah, making them just feel real and not cliched caricatures was like essential. Just especially in a room, a small room that we can find our guys to. If somebody's really annoying or somebody you just don't, you can't get around it. The story will just stop every time they're on camera. So you kind of want everybody to be, you put it in a good way, but somewhat likable, but flawed in the same way, and hopefully on some level we got to that point. So
the other thing I thought that was interesting is so they're sort of debating the ethical consequences of their discovery, and I thought what was really interesting is you both had the sort of ethical consequences that you'd think of, it being used for evil or it being used for good, but no one can use it for good because it's secret, because their work is classified.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really interesting that you brought in this point. One of the characters' concern, it kind of almost ignores that, and instead his thing is a kind of intellectual integrity sort of argument, and that it's not so much a good or evil question, but just that you can't hold back a fundamental piece of knowledge from the world. And I thought that was really interesting. I mean, was that some idea you had from the beginning, or was that something that happened as you were writing?
I think that developed. I when I'm writing the scripts, I generally have kind of a very vague roadmap. It's not specific, so kind of the way it flows, which I like, is very natural, and so it's that plot point just felt right for the character to kind of really make a stand. I knew he was going to kind of be at the end of the film, I wanted everybody against him, and he was going to be on an island. So he got to a point throughout the film, he slowly starts differentiating himself from the other characters. So I knew I wanted to get to a point where he seems to want to be doing it for a more righteous reason, and I liked him on that island, and then kind of juxtaposed with how we see the film finishing. It is maybe an interesting kind of combination of who's right, who's wrong here. Is this who's to say, really?
It was nice to have this portrayal, and I think accurate portrayal of mathematics as being really fundamental to technology and the way we live and medical advancement. Is that sort of something that you thought before you did this work, researching the film? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying to you earlier, I've always been just amazed when, just at these kind of amazing discoveries that mathematicians or scientists make, the ones that kind of change things for, the better, for some cases. You can make, for the worse, as we talk a little bit about in the film. So I've always just been fascinated by that idea that somebody could, somebody's brain is this powerful. It can just do that. Yeah, the idea that these guys could just change the world, and just, it was always, I just loved that idea. I felt it was like and just that the moment that they realize they've done it and what to do with it is, it's like a moment in time, a little snapshot that I've always wanted to know. It was, after Einstein did something, it's like the next day, what is he? Well, I just did that, and everybody's agreeing with me, and what do I do now? I'll never be in that situation, but it's just fascinating to me, like, that these guys, and it's something so powerful that they're now struggling with wow, we just did it, almost like a whoops, it's like congratulations, but whoops, look what we've done. So
I think it's interesting as well that it's this isn't a fictional situation. I was talking to John Barrow, and he was saying that there's people here whose work is classified, that when they put in their research assessment exercises, certain review panels can't read them because they don't have the classification. So it's interesting. This isn't a fictional scenario. This is real, that people do this research.
My brother, when after grad school, he worked at Sandia National Labs in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is one of the government-run labs where everything he worked on was classified. So he kind of, down to the detailing of the documents that we had was all accurate. So he was like very involved with classified projects, and he did a lot of cryptography. He wasn't really allowed to tell us what more he did, but yeah,
does he have any letters from the president thanking him?
I don't know, actually. If he did, he probably locked him away somewhere. It's definitely very real and happens at a lot of academic institutions. These, people are working on some interesting things that people want to keep secret. So
it's funny, it's quite obvious that if someone's doing a medical degree, they need to take a course in ethics, or if they're doing anything that a lot of technology degrees. Right. But you just don't think a mathematics degree should have an ethics component. Yeah. But maybe it should. I don't know.
That's a very good point. That's very true. And business, you have to take ethics, and you're going to get your MBA, sure. Yeah. They have a lot of power. What is being innovated at a lot of these schools is, can be powerful. So it's a funny point.
And given that the building we're sitting in, Centre for Mathematical Sciences in Cambridge, houses the Rouse Ball Professor of Mathematics here, Tim Gowers, who one of your characters holds that position. Is it strange to be here in this place?
It is surreal. I think surreal is the perfect word. Yeah, it's one of those ones when you're sitting in your little room. I think I started writing the script back in 2009, so it's been 3-4 years now. To kind of be here is very surreal, very cool. So it's a lot of fun. It's really, really cool. So
that was Timothy Lanzone talking to us back in 2012, just before the UK premiere of his movie Travelling Salesman here at the Centre for Mathematical Sciences in Cambridge.
And if you'd like to find out more about any of the topics talked about, go to plus.maths.org and search for Travelling Salesman, or search for P versus NP, or search for cryptography.
We'll put links in the episode notes as well.
Thanks for listening, and bye for now.
Bye!